India heading towards a third COVID wave? Let us find out. I have in the past correctly estimated the peak of the second wave in India and calculated the Delta variant transmissibility before anyone else did. Find the link for that video in the description. With that said, let us evaluate the third wave possibility. ICMR's, Indian Council of Medical Research's, fourth National COVID Sero Survey tells us this. The sero-prevalence at the national level went up from 24% in December 2020 to 67% in June 2021. This sample study included everyone above 6 years. Key point to note here is that the sero-prevalence reached 67% in the month of June 2021, which means 67% of the Indians have antibodies against SARS-CoV-2 virus, which causes the COVID-19 infection, during the second wave, and it was due to the Delta variant. Delta variant has spread across India starting around March and soon outcompeted the previous variant, the Wuhan variant. Various studies presented that Delta is highly transmissible, about 3 times more transmissible than the wild, Wuhan, variant. Recent studies in China showcase that Delta variant viral load is 1,000 times more than the Wuhan variant, which explains why it is so transmissible. The Delta variant can replicate at a much faster rate than the original strain, making the mutation much more infectious, according to the study. When a person becomes infected with the Delta variant, the mutation is shedding significantly more viral material, making it harder to suppress and easier to infect others. Researchers also found that on average it took approximately 4 days for the Delta variant to reach detectable levels using a standard COVID-19 test kit compared with the 6 days it took for the original coronavirus strain to be detected. Experts believe the Delta variant spreads more easily because of mutations that make it better at latching onto cells in human bodies. I have listed these details essentially to indicate how transmissible Delta is when compared to any other current variants, whether it is Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Lambda. Of course, it is an evolving story and we may be up for a surprise with the same variants or the new variants. A sero-prevalence of close to 70% gives us 2 important indicators. 1. We still have about 30% Indians who are vulnerable. This is the very reason why we are still seeing the numbers around 35,000 on a daily basis. You may question why we are not seeing higher numbers or another peak, when 400 million Indians are still vulnerable, a number that is higher than the total US population. So, when seropositivity reached about 70%, it is most likely that the remaining 30% are sparsely spread or have some innate immunity or may be practicing COVID-appropriate behavior very seriously. Which makes it harder for the virus to spread like wildfire within this 30% of the Indians. A variant like Delta would still spread but at a much reduced pace. A reason why I think we have plateaued at around 35,000. This phenomenon can be better explained through Darwin's natural selection.
This is Lithopodius nulla, a simple creature with a tendency, like any other species, to reproduce offspring. Lots of offspring. Although the offspring inherit many characteristics of their parents, no 2 individuals in the population are exactly the same. This variation is vital to the survival of the species, as only a fraction of the Lithopodius will actually survive long enough to reproduce themselves. As a result, only those with characteristics that are best suited for survival in the environment will pass on these successful traits to the next generation. Those with characteristics less suited to the environment are less likely to survive and reproduce. This process is called natural selection, and over time and generations, it leads to the build-up of favorable characteristics in the population of a species. The result is a transformation of a population over time to suit its environment. This is known as adaptation. Environmental pressures can also change. But as long as variation in a population exists, new adaptations can occur, ensuring the survival of the species.
Now, replace bird with SARS-CoV-2 virus and Lithopodius nulla with the humans. 2. And what about the 70% who have the antibodies due to either an exposure to the virus or due to the vaccines? Can they get reinfected? To answer this, let us first understand about the E484K mutation. A recent Lancet study observes that SARS-CoV-2 can evade neutralizing antibodies induced by previous infection or vaccination through mutations in the spike protein, including the receptor binding domain (RBD), the asparagine N to tyrosine Y substitution at position 501 N501Y, present in variants of concern belonging to the alpha, B 1.1.7, beta, B.1.351, and gamma, P.1 lineages, does not seem to affect in vitro neutralization of human convalescent or post-vaccination sera. However, additional substitutions, such as E484K present in beta B.1.351 and gamma P.1 lineages, might allow evasion from neutralizing antibodies. This study suggests that the single E484K mutation in the RBD affects the binding of serum polyclonal neutralizing antibodies. The decrease in neutralization efficiency for sera with low or moderate IgG against SARS-CoV-2 spike protein could result in loss of neutralization of the E484K recombinant virus. Was it too technical? Then let me explain this more simplistically. A certain mutation called E484K on the virus spike protein equips it with the power to escape the immune antibodies which may have developed due to natural infection or may be due to vaccines. This mutation was observed in beta variant, and the gamma variant. Fortunately, the delta variant doesn't have this mutation. So, the delta variant doesn't have the required power to break the antibody immunity when compared to the beta or the gamma variants. Even though delta doesn't have this capability, what it has is this power of immense transmissibility. Hence, whichever country it reaches, it outcompetes all the other variants in that country and becomes the dominant one. For example, in the US, the Alpha variant took 3 months to become the dominant one, but the Delta variant took only 3 weeks to become the dominant variant. Now, let's come back to our question of those 70% of Indians who have the antibodies. Now, will they get reinfected? If they do, will that lead us into a third wave? To answer this, let us connect the dots. Delta is the dominant variant in India. Delta can't reinfect the same person who had previous infections, it could be due to any variant. Last year, in Mumbai, we had seen high cases of COVID in slums, and this year it was in high-rise buildings, so Delta variant chooses the new vulnerable targets, but it doesn't reinfect. This was corroborated by the study conducted in Pune, which concluded that the natural immunity after illness lasts around 9 months. 4 large studies from the United Kingdom, the United States of America and Denmark estimated that infection with SARS-CoV-2 provided 80 to 90% protection from reinfection up to 7 months, and up to 94% protection against symptomatic disease. So, it's well established that at least for 6 months, the Delta variant, which is still the dominant one in India, wouldn't reinfect. How about the antibodies generated through vaccines? It is now observed in Israel, the Pfizer vaccine, considered to be a very good vaccine, but its efficacy dropped to 39% against Delta variant. However, it is still 91% effective in preventing serious illness. But efficacy against the infection dropped to 39%, which is very alarming. Now, there is a catch to this number. The efficacy was observed to be varying in accordance to when it was administered. Those who got vaccinated in January, the efficacy is at 16%, in February it is at 44%, in March it is at 67%, and in April it is observed at 75%. So, vaccine efficacy against the Delta variant is significantly dropping after 6 months. So, whether the antibodies were due to natural infection or due to vaccines, the window of protection is at least 6 months. Since most of the Indians got infected between April to June, and our vaccination rates at around 7% is still very low. So, adding 6 months window, the numbers may rise again around October. So, infections can be expected to rise again around October. However, this depends on how many we would vaccinate by then. If vaccination rates pick up and if we vaccinate a considerable number of Indians by October. By considerable number I meant at least 50% of the Indians. If we achieve this feat, then the window would further get pushed by probably another 6 months. Another very important point to note here is, in India we have vaccinated most of our frontline workers and our seniors during the early months of the year. So, for them the window might end sooner, around August. So, there might be a need for the booster shots for them parallelly while we are inoculating the unvaccinated groups. There is another very important caveat that I should definitely mention in tandem to the above statements. The above statements should be read in today's context, as we don't know about the new variants as yet. A new variant might just change all these calculations. You may remember we were worried about the Delta Plus variant, though we called it as Delta Plus, WHO combined it under Delta variant. So, we were worried about this variant since Delta variant went through the E484K mutation, and hence experts thought biologically this variant has both transmissibility and the immune escape capabilities. Fortunately, this variant didn't transmit as much and was confined to a few local spreads. So, does that mean having capability is one thing and actually exhibiting that capability in the real world is completely a different thing? We don't know the exact reasons. Now, let's talk about kids. Many of us were worried about kids, thinking what if kids get infected in large numbers during the probable third wave? The ICMR's sero survey again has some answers to this. 55% of the children, 6 to 9 years, were found to be seropositive. Which tells us that even the kids were infected almost equally when compared to adults. Fortunately, we haven't seen much hospitalization in kids. That's because children can handle viral infection much better as they have a lower number of ACE2 receptors to which the virus binds. So, this should hold true even if numbers as estimated increases around October, except if a new variant emerges which finds a way to bind even with low ACE2 receptors. Summarizing, Delta variant, which is the dominant one everywhere, doesn't reinfect for about 6 months. This is true for both natural and the vaccine-induced immunity. So, if things stand as they are today with low vaccinations, and assuming there are no new variants more transmissible than the Delta, the numbers in India may rise again around October. If we turn the tide and vaccinate a considerable percentage of the population, then this can be avoided altogether. However, the frontline workers and our seniors may just have to take those booster shots around August, as they were inoculated a couple of months earlier when compared to the others. And kids should do just fine as they did during the second wave, unless a new variant emerges that can bind even to the low ACE2 receptors. I hope there are no more new waves. We have seen and gone through a lot during the second wave. However, looking at this video, I am not very hopeful. If we can't vaccinate, can we at least follow the COVID-appropriate behavior? Please share this video. Remember, we have only a couple of months more. Whatever we can do, we need to do it now.